Welcome back, everyone, to the Amazon Connect podcast. Are we at episode 17, 16? Mark, do you know? It's been that long since we last did an
17. I'm
episode.
pretty
know, it's
sure
been a
so.
minute. I think we're 17, Doug.
17,
we
because I
should
remember it
check our
was
math.
16A was the last one.
Yeah, that's right.
So since
Yes, the infamous lost episode, right? For folks who have not caught up on the latest, the latest podcast.
How have you been, Mark?
I've been all right, Doug. It's I just landed about an hour ago, so I've been traveling. I was spending quite a bit of time on the West Coast these last couple of weeks, so meeting with a number of customers and our partners, and yeah, it's been a fun couple of weeks, but it's good to be home.
Spending some
How
time
about
out on the
yourself?
waves, out in Malibu.
Yeah, I
Shooting
was
the pier.
surfing.
Yeah.
No, I was hanging out more around San Jose, San Francisco area. So
Oh,
yeah.
it's that, and in full disclosure, this has been the reason for the delay. Is your busy schedule? I've been sitting here patiently waiting. Now, viewers, but not yet listeners, will recognize that we have proficiency-based routed an expert into the podcast. A very, very dear friend of both me and Mark, and that is Sunil Menon. Sunil, please introduce yourself and give us a super short rundown on who you are.
Absolutely, Doug. First of all, it's an honor to be on your podcast. I consider it to be an honor. So thank you for having me over. Hi, my name is Sunil Menon for listeners and viewers. I am a senior business development leader for Amazon Connect and Amazon Connect Health. My remit is U.S. healthcare. I cover all of the subsegments within U.S. healthcare, which includes providers, so healthcare systems, payers, healthcare payers, med tech, health tech, and biopharmaceuticals. So I look at scaling motions to grow the business.
And that is giving a little hint as to what the topic that this podcast, when we in the second half, will be about. But we will get to that later on, because we need to give everyone a catch up on what's been happening after the breathlessness of reInvent and the releases across January and February. There's a little bit of a lull as we save up all our releases for Enterprise Connect, which is kind of like the second biggest announcement through the year. And so there were a heap of interesting things mentioned there. So let's go through them quickly so we can get to the good stuff from Sunil. I might go first because I already have the conch. Conversational analytics for email. Exactly as it sounds. Your customers are sitting on a gold mine of unstructured data, and most of it lives in email. That's the sort of the entry tagline. This will come as no surprises to customers who are already enthusiastic about what we do with contact lens or conversational analytics across voice and chat. So now extending that to email to make sure that you're able to unlock all that data. And I think probably the most important point about this for anyone who hasn't been exposed to it is this is where you're making useful data from the contact center available to everyone else in the organization, whether that be sales, whether that be product, whether that be marketing. That historically the contact center has been a place where, yes, you handled customer interactions and customer conversations, but oftentimes the information from this place, which is, as I always like to say, for most organizations, the one place where your citizens or your customers call you up and tell you what's concerning them or email you about it, is the contact center. And so being able to finally use that data and unlock that, I mean, I think the business case almost makes itself. You don't even have to talk anymore about it. Now, I don't know what's going on with Mark Rutkowski and his camera, but we can hear you. We can hear. We can't see you though. We may have to do our first ever edit and pause this recording, and then I'll stitch it together. So I will do, and we're back. Mark, go.
All right. So number 2 on the list was native testing and simulation for chat. So we've talked about this before in terms of, I think when we at reInvent, in our reInvent update, we talked about the ability to really start to continue to test and simulate, particularly around our AI capabilities. So this really allows you to build, test, and validate your AI-powered self-service experience before they ever reach a live customer. You don't have any engineering bottlenecks, no guesswork. So why is that super important? Because a lot of our customers are investing in this AI-driven CX, and you really need that confidence in terms of when you start to really deploy your AI agents at scale, particularly around your, self-service and chat experiences. So this is, GA in terms of, what we're really focusing on there to make it easier for our customers to have that confidence right before they release these to their end customer.
And that is what marks us out in this space, and the ability to actually get you to production. And the things
Yes.
that get you to production are the observability, the reporting, the testing, all those
Exactly.
things that
Exactly.
everyone.ai doesn't have as part of their platform. That's where
Yes.
we really can deliver. Number 3 was AI-powered predictive insights. Exactly what you'd expect. It's the ability to give insights into the data and analyze the data that you have and start to give recommendations to the contact center. Hey, this is what you should be thinking about. It's basically impossible for a human to have a view across a contact center of any sort of decent size and really know exactly what's going on all the time. So to have AI there to excuse me. This is a troublesome episode, this one. We're losing cameras. I've got a frog in my throat. To pull that information, to give insights to the contact center. Over to you, Mark, for number 4.
Yeah. So number 4 is the AI-powered Manager Assist. It's a gated preview. So essentially, what this really allows you is enables coaching and performance intelligence that scales, across, Amazon Connect and your CX experience. And with that, where that really is important, right, is how do your leaders and your supervisors really get that data they need to connect that frontline performance to those business incomes, not just the handle time overall. And you'll see a lot of this in terms of we're really trying to drive more towards a proactive versus a reactive experience. And this is where, in particular, capabilities like this AI powered manager assist really becomes super important because it enables that more proactiveness, if you will, right around that. And particularly as signals become more complex in your contact center, right? Being able to see that versus having to go dive into dashboards and, figure that out yourself.
Yep. And the last one actually ties neatly into the topic we brought Sunil in to talk about. And that is the pre-announce. So you may have noticed some things are GA. I didn't mention that AI-powered predictive insights is preview. You mentioned that the Manager Assist is gated preview. So this is pre-announce. So this will be coming. But it's called Solution Studio, and it allows you to build and adapt customer journeys and back office workflows without engineering support. So it's basically taking Connect from those sort of flows that we know to be able to pull in the larger kind of routing that we've been talking about on previous podcasts. But I know that Sunil wants to talk about something similar to this.
Yes.
So I'm going to give a little, we're going to back up a tiny bit and say the reason Sunil is here is because we've also announced, as I learned recently, a parallel event, not at Enterprise Connect, we announced the release of Amazon Connect Health, which has a massive impact for many of my customers here in ANZ or ANZ, as it's said over on your side of the pond, where I work in public sector. So many of our customers are in healthcare, and this is going to have a big impact for them. But Sunil, why did we make Amazon Connect Health?
Question, Doug. So as you know, Amazon Connect as a solution has been used in healthcare around the world. You have some great customers in Australia that have publicly, New South Wales eHealth, for example, has publicly said that they use Amazon
Absolutely.
Connect.
Poppy down there has stood on stage many times and
Many
spoken to lots of other
times.
customers. She's amazing.
And you have NHS has also come publicly and said that they use Amazon Connect in different parts of their system. And similarly, US customers have also adopted Amazon Connect. It's no longer just a contact center solution, because if you think about you as a patient, you interact with different parts of a health system. You may call a central contact center, but you may also be going to a department, clinic, or an ambulatory center, and you may be communicating with those. The beauty of Amazon Connect is that because it's not a license-based system, You can actually provide patient engagement through the entire continuum of care in the contact center, department, clinics, and ambulatory centers. But there is also a need to improve those experiences. And what we found that every system has electronic health record systems where you have the patient data. That's where all the scheduling events are created. So it was important that we make it easier for our healthcare customers to reduce the friction of that whole process, provide self-serve experiences for patient verification, for example, have the ability to make, cancel, or reschedule their appointments in an automated fashion, because those things usually take a lot of time. So that's why we decided that we were going to launch these purpose-built AI agents to sit on top of Connect to enhance the experience, reduce the friction, and improve the time to value. So
And
we took, yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm interested because you said there you covered a lot of things I want to ask about there, but you said that it's important that we did this to improve the service that was being delivered by healthcare organisations. Is it worth teasing out? Oh, I'll actually say I think it is worth teasing out why this is important to our listeners. It is that the population globally is getting older. Where the population keeps growing. There are more and more people living longer in those sort of years where you really have a big dependency on healthcare. And every single listener here will be interacting with health services at some point during their life and multiple times in those multiple points. It's getting to the point to the stage in places like Tasmania and Australia. I'm sure there's some of the smaller states in the US where there are not enough doctor's appointments to service a state where there are, the people are increasingly old and increasingly remote as well. And so these kind of e-health initiatives, which have had, people have been talking about e-health for the last 20 years. What is it that's actually that we've done here? You mentioned the, specific AI agents. Why is this different to, having online appointments or, video conference and things like that? What have we actually provided?
Yeah. So we've actually provided two sets of agents. Some agents work with Amazon Connect, but what we did is we elevated the Amazon Connect to a family brand name of applications. So what that means really is your historical Amazon Connect is now being enhanced through these agents that help with the patient verification appointment scheduling. So if you think about automating those things, you typically have those agents that have to work with authentication systems. And the system of record for health systems is typically the electronic health record system. And because this is, PHI, protected health information, there are safeguards and guardrails on how this information can be accessed. So we've reduced that friction by working with leading EHRs to directly be able to verify. So you don't have to invest a lot of money in making those connections using, expensive resources to do so. Similarly, the appointments also sit inside of the EHR. Think of, different departments, cardiology, oncology, and then you have different doctors on different dates. So the schedule, typically you would call somebody, you would wait in queue for 15, 20 minutes, maybe even longer. And then you would speak to somebody, they would try to find you an appointment. But what we have done is made that information for an existing patient provider relationship. We've made that ability to make, cancel, and reschedule automated, because now it can directly communicate with the electronic health record system and make those changes. So you're reducing the time to actually make an appointment.
And one thing that struck me, I was a couple of weeks ago, I was in Queensland talking to one of the health agencies up there, and they highlighted one of the big problems they have with that, the appointment scheduling and rescheduling, is oftentimes someone who has even not that serious a health condition might have multiple appointments. There might be the GP appointment, and then there's one with the radiologist, then there's the one with the specialist, then there's the one. So the the agentic approach is probably the only way to really solve that problem, where it's able to go in, look in multiple systems, because these may all be private providers as well as public providers, and they may have different systems. So the idea that you would write a simple Lambda function to go and look up a bunch of different systems is just not feasible. You'd be forever modeling it, remodeling it. So that idea of a tool setup, an MCP servers, is much, much more, like I said, feasible, but I'm going to say it again. It's in fact the only feasible way. But Mark, you look like you're about to say something there.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask, like, which I think it's, I look at the other side of that too, though, right? Is I think, healthcare is, also highly risk adverse. So, Sunil, as we've had these conversations with our customers around this, what have we told them that really have convinced them that, like, this is a better way than what they have?
Yeah, we had on the patient engagement side of things. We have a customer, University of California, San Diego, who spoke at reInvent, and the patient verification part alone reduced their, the average call time by over 60 seconds. Take that saving, then you multiply by millions of calls. That is a lot of cost saving. It also reduces the queue time, because you think of all the people who are self-serving that particular part of that journey, then it's allowing other patients who are in queue to be served faster. So that's one example. The appointment um, uh, management agents are going to result in, again, the same uh, benefits. There's going to be higher first contact resolution because they're calling to make an appointment, and now they have a way to make an appointment without waiting in line for or queue for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, depending on how clogged that system is. So that is a great saving. uh, and then this is different set of agents that came out with, and that's the exciting part people don't know about, which is we now have agents that are available at point of care, and you
I
don't
was
need
going to get to this.
Amazon Connect
Yes.
for
Yeah.
that. So now what does that really mean? Think of your experience. You walk into an exam room to meet a doctor. The doctor is going from patient to patient. They get a little folder with, your history and, why you are there. They're trying to quickly, between calls, trying to get insights on you before they walk into that door. And then they start chatting with you. There's a lot of information exchange. They have to be empathetic, but they also have to take notes. Anytime you have a cognitive distraction, it takes away from the quality of experience, the empathy and care. I mean, we're all human beings, and doctors are human beings. So that's another issue. And then they have to go back in the evening after they put their kids to bed. They have to go and type up the notes, remember what was said. So it's a pretty burdensome process. So we have these set of agents that we call the point of care agents, that do the patient insights, so they can provide a quick view into the patient profile, why they're there. For example, it's Maria, 59 years old. We have to talk about her weight and diabetes diagnosis. And the diabetes diagnosis is coming from her lipid profile, her cholesterol and other kinds of metrics that are quickly surfaced to the doctor. So the doctor has those insights and they can have a more effective conversation. The ambient listening agent listens to the conversation, transcribes the whole thing, and provides a great summary. So you have fidelity of everything that's communicated. And then you have the autonomous coding agent. So For billing purposes, you need to have the ICD-10 codes, the common procedure codes, CPT codes. So those codes are autonomously generated based on the entire transcript of conversation. You have auditability, and then you also have confidence scores on those codes. So think about the efficiencies. You've made the doctor more effective before he meets the patient through those patient insights. You've made the doctor not worry about taking notes because everything is being transcribed. There's ambient listening. And then you've accelerated the revenue cycle by providing autonomous coding with those codes. They don't have to spend time at home after putting their kids to bed. So it's overall efficiency improvement. This particular set of agents is targeted to health technology companies. So it's available as a unified SDK so that they can incorporate it in their solution. So we have some examples. Veradigm saw that every physician saved 2+ hours week by doing this when they tested this solution. NetSmart saw a 275% increase in their ambient listening capabilities across 1,300 clinics. We have Amazon One Medical, which had over 1 million ambient listening sessions done by these agents. And this year, we're going to launch autonomous coding. So there is overall efficiency improvement, and we are empowering health technology companies that want to offer a cost-effective solution, the ability to embed these agents. And there'll be more agents, both on the patient engagement side and the point of care side that we're going to launch.
Sunil, you've mentioned that term ambient listening. What is that like? That's an interesting term. What does that mean? Because I don't know if everyone kind of understands when you use that terminology.
Yeah, absolutely. So ambient listening is when you and I are talking, we are exchanging words. So everything that we are covering, including our pauses and other kinds of feelings, those kinds of things can be captured in that ambient listening mode. So think of it, it's on the connect side, you have the ability to decipher what people are saying. It's the exact same thing.
I kind of think about when we often talk about the conversational analytics, right? Like this is that, right? And then some, right? In terms of understanding kind of where sentiment now becomes super important, right? In terms of that, patient and doctor relationship for sure.
Yeah, for want of a better term, it's call recording for conversations.
Yeah,
that aren't happening on the phone.
Exactly.
I remember a few years ago we released Amazon Comprehend Medical that had as part of it sort of almost recommendations, but also double checking things like the medications that were being recommended, or did it match up with the medical guides as to the amounts and those kind of things, and just sort of as a safeguard and an assistant for the physician. Was there a consideration of incorporating that kind of functionality into Connect Health? I mean, you mentioned that there may be future agents, but that kind of
those kinds of things will definitely be incorporated as the product gets refined. So this is, with agentic AI, there's so much development. We've taken the best of our learnings from previous AWS services in the space and built on those to make the current agents deliver the value.
Maybe you can't comment on this, and maybe Mark can. I don't know. Are we going to see more of these kind of? Because you mentioned a Connect as a family brand across different kinds of verticals and things like that. Are we going to see more of these, like Amazon Connect Health and then Amazon Connect? For want of a better term, I don't know, sports. I don't know whether Amazon Connect Insurance, Amazon Connect.
Sign me up for that one, Doug.
Yeah.
I think clearly the Amazon Connect name has value, and we see that we can deliver value across different verticals and horizontal solutions. So if I were a betting person, I would bet on that, but I do not have, you know, the insights to tell you specifically what may or may not be coming.
I see Mark is smiling wryly
I mean,
as a member of
I'm
the
going to
product
say
team. Are you able
that
to?
we're all. I mean, I think that's the advantage we have as a horizontal platform, right? Is we're already in a number of these verticals today, and I think part of this is what we often hear from customers is it would be really great if Connect could do this right at a deeper scale and in some of these verticals. So it is, what I'll say is you can imagine we're definitely looking into a number of these spaces for sure, right? In terms of where, because again, we'll build it based on customer demand.
Yeah, and I think where this fits into the overall evolution of Connect over the last 8 years, arguably coming up for 9, I think, aren't we? Yeah.
We just
9.
we just basically passed the birthday.
Of course, because it was
Enterprise Connect, right?
Enterprise Connect. Yeah,
We should have done a little birthday.
I always think of July 1st because that was the Sydney region, but you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But where we began, with a very competent platform, but a lot of APIs and a lot of ability for builders to build and Lambda functions and things like that, and we pivoted in the following couple of years very much to our customers shouldn't have to build. They should be able to just use features and functions, just tick boxes or pre-build them, things like that. And I think where this fits is we've done a fantastic job of creating and incorporating AI agents into the platform, native MCP integration, modules as tools. We've spoken about all these things and we'll continue to speak about them because they are so critical to where everyone is at the moment. But what many customers, I get this an awful lot from the customers I speak to, they're not at a position where they want to be building AI agents and doing things from scratch. Even with the tooling we have, even with the the idea of getting to Agent Core Gateway on Bedrock is that takes some learning. And it takes some capability. And not everyone has those skills in house, and so being able to pre-build these things and actually so that healthcare providers and can take advantage of all these things without having to hire a bunch of AI developers and those kinds of things. So yeah, I think this is really exciting from a directional point of view for our customers, in that if you don't have the people now, just hold on a sec, and these things will start to appear. More and more pre-built agents are going to appear.
And the thing with those pre-built agents, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Mark.
go ahead, Sunil. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the benefit of those pre-built agents is when it's built by Amazon as part of Amazon Connect Health, obviously it's HIPAA eligible, it's compliant with high tech, and if there are payment agents, we are compliant with PCI.
Really important stuff. This is absolutely critical.
So you don't have to then worry about those, and security is job one for us.
This is exactly what we were talking about earlier. How you get your AI workloads to production is by using Amazon Connect, because of all the non-functional things we take care of. Compliance is a perfect one. HIPAA compliant, IRAP here in Australia, all these kinds of things, being IRAP assessed to the protected level, I should say, for all my Australian customers. But then, yes, as you say, security, the networking side, is your storage secure as well? Like all your data at rest, being in S3, and the data permanence that we have there, the 11.9s, resilience for your data. Should the access be lost, that it will still be there when it comes back. Yeah, I mean I'm rambling a tiny bit now, but it's good stuff, I think. It is, this is what actually makes it real, because it's really easy to get a pilot or a POC of an AI workload. Very difficult to get it to production.
Well, not without everything you just described, Doug, right? Like that's all super important, right? And then on the other side of that, how are you ensuring that you're validating all of that, right? We're talking massive scale, right, in terms of the amount of data and the interactions that you're having here. And it sounds like, Sunil, based on with some of the customer anecdotes that you've already shared, like it's been already, very successful up to this point.
Yes, and even the baseline connect solution, right? I think one thing that you mentioned was the ability to, uh, capture the customer conversations and then take it to other departments within the company. So I'll give you. I used to be a product leader for a medical devices company, so I've actually brought
Ah,
Oh,
some
wow.
surgical biomaterial and software as a medical device. So stuff that goes in people's bodies. So, there is in Australia, the TGA is, pretty certain that they want to put the right products in the market. Uh, Ditto with FDA here in the States. But one of the challenges I faced is if when I launched a new product, there would be feedback from the product. So there's product surveillance, and they would call the contact center, and I would get notes on a post-it note
yeah.
that then I had to figure out what it means, call the health customer. And,
I'm
there's
sure
a
the
parallel.
handwriting was impeccable, Sunil, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So Dr. Azar is saying that it's not torquing beyond 45 Newton centimeter. Okay, now I need to follow up and get all that information because he might have
Mm,
communicated a lot more things. And then there is an issue of going to your quality and regulatory affairs because any pharmacovigilance or medical device vigilance has to go to both quality and regulatory as well as to the product leaders. So, what if you could transcribe what the HCP was saying, completely summarize it, pass it to your regulatory and quality assurance functions, and also send it to the product leader? Not only are you able to meet your, corrective action and preventative action for regulatory and quality assurance, but you're also able to help the product leader know what changes to make
mm.
the product better. So you can think about how it can benefit medical devices or a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I saw, and you guys may have seen as well, Jeff Bezos talking the other day, making the general statement that AI will transform the productivity of every organization on the planet. And that is a very powerful statement. But what you've given there is a perfect example of how that applies to a product manager who is trying to, for a not pharmaceutical, what do you say,
Medical devices.
medical device company, where the look at that productivity gain by rather than scrawled post-it notes that you sometimes get and all the work you had to do to then work backwards from that to actually find out what it is you should do with the product to this information is getting pulled and summarized and the important and correlated against other data as well, because maybe you spend your time working on that and that's the second most important or third most or fourth most important thing you should be working on. Now you can actually get to what is the most important. Now, gentlemen, I do see, because we did have a restart, that we are getting to the top of the podcast, so I think we will end it there. Thank you so much, Sunil. Thank you all, as always, Mark. um, just fascinating and fantastic to see the sort of things we're doing with Amazon Connect that may not be immediately obvious to many people who use Connect in the sort of traditional sense. So thank you very much for your time.
yeah, thanks, Sunil. This was really
Thank you.
fascinating conversation. Loved it.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks all.